Hello and welcome. My name is Chris from ChristopherHole.com and welcome to episode 15 of our podcast, where we're going to be discussing the idea that fad diets might not be the problem. What we're going to cover throughout are sort of four different sections, if you will. We're going to look at some essential diet information, so we're going to maybe bring a little bit more context to the subject. We're going to look at why aren't they the problem and sort of maybe shed some light on what is the problem, if you will. Then we're going to look at some essential fad diet information, because there is a difference between a diet and a fad diet, or that's how I'm going to categorize it. There is a difference between diets and fad diets. And then we're going to talk about some solutions, and then we'll just summarize at the end and wrap up the podcast. Before we get into any of that, I must say I am on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, so if you do keep a look out on the channel in the future, you will see, you can either come to Facebook, which is Christopher Hole Training, and obviously you can watch the live video there, or you could just subscribe to the new YouTube channel and you can and watch there. Alternatively, there's Twitter, which is at Christopher Hole, and Instagram, which is Christopher Hole as well. So please do come along to any of those social channels and follow along. Like and follow. It'd be great to answer any questions that you might have, and get some answers to you, so you're able to live a healthier, fitter life, if you will. Alternatively, you've got the website where you can come, where you can go to christopherhole.com/join, and you can sign up to the monthly newsletter, where we try and cover as much as we can under the health and fitness umbrella. So anything to do with diet, behavior, exercise, we try and fit as much as we can into those subjects. It's all video content, so we try and keep it as interactive as possible, so you aren't reading lots of words. There are obviously written blogs on there that could be related to the subject that we're talking about, but we do have featured videos and exercises of the month on there that you can obviously get access to. Also on that, you've got the members area, which has got exercise libraries, stretching libraries, foam rolling libraries, the health and fitness tutorials, they're all on there. So there's lots of content on christopherhole.com/join. So we are coming back to the subject of fad diets aren't the problem. So to build, I guess, the platform, or to set the stage, or to build the landscape to what we're going to talk about, we're going to start with essential diet info. Now, essential diet info is essentially understanding what diet is and what it means. So the original definition of it, so if you go to the dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, the Cambridge Dictionary, the Collins Dictionary, whichever dictionary you've got, what you'll tend to find where it originates is from Greece, or from Greek, and it's dieta, and it means a way of life. So essentially what it's talking about, it's what you eat. Now, what the modern definition of diet has come along, it's to restrict oneself to small amounts of special kinds of food in order to lose weight. So what we've got are two, you could say, slightly contradictory definitions. One is the original. That's the one I'm kind of going to be working from a lot of the time, and then you've got the modern one, which is the one where we sort of understand today, in that it's a restriction of some kind. But what we have to understand is that your diet is essentially the way that you eat. It's a way of life. So we've sort of honed it into food, but essentially the diet is your way of life, if you will, or the way you eat. So we've got the original definition of diet, which is dieta, which is a way of life, and then we've got the modern definition, which is to restrict oneself to small amounts or special kinds of foods in order to lose weight. So that sort of, I guess, sets the stage. Now, I'm going to be talking a lot more from the perspective of the original definition. So why aren't they the problem? Or why don't I think they're the problem? Well, because the diets can work. So if they can work for one person, there is a potential they could work for the next person. Now, I know there could be a lot of controversy. I know I hear a lot of professionals, nutritionists, dietitians, personal trainers, all of those types of professionals, they will talk about It's all about eating a healthy way. Now, I agree with that, and I'm wholeheartedly behind that. But what we have to understand is there are certain situations where we may need to adapt things and change things. So what we can understand is that if necessary, a 12-week diet, an 8-week diet, or a 4-week diet, or a 6-week diet, or a 6-month diet, that can work. That could get you the result that you seek. You could lose weight. It's then, which brings me on to the next point, what is the problem? Well, the problem is the way you're currently eating. So it's that got you into the problem that you're facing now. It's that helped you gain the weight. It's that helped you be low energy, or that you have your high sugar swings and highs and lows and peaks and troughs. So it's that got you there. So it's very much understanding that it's the way that you're eating at the moment that has caused the problem. Now, if a diet is used incorrectly, then yes, I do understand how it can be a problem. But if we use it in a way that we are able to lose the weight, we then transition off that diet into a much healthier way of doing it, then we've achieved the first thing, which is to get the weight down. And then we've achieved the second thing on maintaining that lower weight. So in that instance, the fad diet worked. So it's not necessarily the diet that's the problem. It's the way that we use the diet that is the problem, and the current way that we're eating. So it's very much from your individual perspective, is understanding what works for you. Because I have an example. I was sat with one person and she was questioning her diet, and I basically asked her the question, do you have a system that works for you? And she said, yeah, I have a diet and I'll do it just before I go on holiday. I'll lose the weight and I'll feel better about myself and I'll be able to sit on the beach in a bikini type of thing. And I was like, well, there you go. There's your method. Whenever you want to go into that bikini, then, or when you go on holiday, just plan 3 months before. This is the way I'm going to eat. Obviously, there are factors that come with that, i.e. you may be restricting a certain food, but if you're going into it with a purpose and knowing that, that's absolutely fine. We know in certain professions we have to sacrifice certain things to fulfill our potential in a profession. So with regards to diet, it's no different. So it's very much understanding that as long as it's planned, as long as it's used properly, then there's nothing wrong with the diet. All we have to do is just find the one that works for us. Because then if we find that the diet that we're on originally is putting on copious amounts of weight, then we will have to change that. But if we are just putting a little bit of weight on over the winter, whilst we eat a little bit more when it's colder and we have slightly hotter food, and we get a little bit more in the way of comfort eating because it's dark in the evenings and so on and so forth, then we might have the instance to be able to say, well, we're just going to go on a 4-week diet. I know I'm going to lose the weight. It's not a problem. I just do that. I lose the weight and I carry on through the summer as if nothing had even happened. That's essentially the original definition of diet. It's just a way of life. Through the winter, I eat slightly more comfort foods because it's cold, it's dark, and this and that and the other. And then in the winter, I change my diet and I do something different. Or, as I mentioned, before a holiday, I eat a certain way, I get the weight down, and then I just carry on as normal. As long as the two aren't drastically different, then we haven't got those extreme fluctuations, if that makes sense. So from I guess we move on to the third point, which is the essential fad diet information, is the fact that fad diets aren't meant to be sustainable. So stop talking about them like they are. That's more of a message, I guess, to other professionals maybe, because it might be that we need to do something for 12 weeks to get weight down, to normalize blood sugar, whatever it might be. It's just the fact that the whole yo-yo behavior is taken with it that makes it seem like it's a problem. But that's not the diet's fault. That's the person yo-yo dieting and thinking, I'm doing everything wrong, I'm doing everything right, sort of thing. Whereas if we just take it as it's the way that we do things, I put a little bit of weight on over the winter, or I lose it in the summer, then that's absolutely fine, as long as it's not extreme fluctuations. The other thing that I've said, and I've mentioned it before, is that they can get you the result that you seek. So if you're trying to lose weight, they can help you do that. If you are trying to gain more energy, they can help you do that. If you're trying to build muscle, they can do that. So some sort of fad diet over a shorter period of time. Bodybuilders essentially are on fad diets. They just change what they do depending on the type of training that they want, or depending on the type of training that they're doing and the result that they want. So they're essentially on about 3 or 4 fad diets throughout the year. If we take it in that context, that it's a set period of time. But how they look at it, it's just their way of life. It's just the way they eat, and that's just the way they do things. So it's about bringing context to the situation and stop worrying about should I, shan't I, and just be like, find what works, do what works, and then just continue to roll that out and build it into a system, build it into a way of life, if that makes sense. The final thing is most diets say the same thing. If you look at most diets, they'll say eat less. Now, some might say eat less more than others, but essentially it's portion control. The other thing, they'll talk about whole foods. They'll talk about fresh foods. They'll talk about fruits and vegetables. They'll talk about good quality proteins. They'll talk about good healthy fats, things like that. So essentially, all those diets are saying, in a roundabout way, the same thing. So it's not about trying to, differentiate yourself from what you think you're doing or what you think you should be doing. It's just about finding that system that works for you. So the solution is, first of all, your lifestyle factors. It's about being adaptable. It's about being adaptable to the change. It's about being able to transition between those different essentially fad diets. As if we go back to the bodybuilding example, they'll change their diet depending on the period of their training they're in. If you're a person that wants to get to lose a little bit of weight before holiday, then just pick 3 months before the holiday, start making the changes, reduce the weight. I mean, if it doesn't work, all you've then got to ask is what worked and what didn't work. Okay, well, why didn't that work? It's just bringing a little bit of let's just say analysis and planning to it, and then you can figure out, well, okay, this seems to work. If you do want to stay lean all the way through, then it's finding the way to do that. And that's essentially all we're looking at, is just finding the system that works for you with your lifestyle. It works for you with the goals that you have. Because if your lifestyle and goals don't match, then you're going to have a problem. Or you're going to have a frustration, because either you're going to be getting the result from your diet but not from your lifestyle, or you're going to get the result from your lifestyle and not your diet. So it's about sort of merging all of that together into one thing, and it's about using these fad diets, as we call them, to make them work for you rather than work against you. And that's the biggest thing with regards to the diet industry and to some degree the fitness industry and professionals, is the fact that they think they're working against you. If it gets you the result, do it. If you then change and transition into a different way of eating or a better way of eating than you were before, then it's absolutely fine. So the third thing is keep track of your outcomes. So as I've mentioned, keep track of what you're doing, write what you're doing down, finding out what works and what doesn't work. And finally, as I've mentioned so many times, it's finding a system that works for you, which might be one fad diet and then you just sustain throughout the rest of the year, or it might be 2 fad diets and then you sustain through the rest of the year. Because what we're trying to do is trying to take the mental stress away from it, because that's essentially what yo-yo dieting is. It's the mental stress. It's nothing to do with the food that you're eating, it's the mental stress that comes with it. It's the guilt you feel through eating certain foods, it's the fear of eating certain foods. So it's about being able to manage all of that with regards to what you're doing. So if you can keep a track of what you're doing, if you can keep a track of how you're feeling about what you're doing, then that's going to make your way of eating a lot easier. So that kind of brings me to the summary, if you will. So first of all, diet, from the Greek dieta, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not quite sure, but it's a way of life. So it's finding out what is your way of eating, if you will. Now, yes, it's going to be slightly different from person to person, but essentially what we're talking about is portion control, it's whole foods, it's fruits and vegetables, it's good quality proteins, it's good quality fats, and it's plenty of fibre, drinking lots of water. If you stick to those, yes, there's going to be certain individual aspects, but if you stick to those, you'll be fine. it's your current diet that's the problem. So if your diet is getting you where you don't want to be, then that's what you have to be thinking about changing and finding what works for you. That just takes time, and it's just taking that time, being patient and being adaptable, being able to transition between different types of foods and things like that, and keep a track, find a system that works for you. I think I've repeated myself about 100 times throughout this podcast, but hopefully it's been valuable, and hopefully it's sort of reinforced some of the points that we've talked about. For the people on YouTube listening to the podcast through YouTube, please do come along to Facebook. I'm on Facebook Live here, and I'm on YouTube Live as well. So please do, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. You'll be able to pick up the live versions, or you can just continue with the videos. Or if you're on Facebook, come along to YouTube, click and subscribe onto the channel. You can get them there, or you can stick with Facebook. They get posted there anyway. So it would be great to sort of hear any questions that you might have, and hopefully I can give you some structured and logical and rational answers to them. So just to finish, many thanks for watching. Please do come along to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, which is Christopher Hole Training on Facebook, at Christopher Hole on Twitter, and Instagram is Christopher Hole. Alternatively, come to the website to christopherhole.com/join. It will be great to see you there and answer any questions that you may have. So many thanks for watching, many thanks for listening. My name is Chris from christopherhole.com. I will speak to you in a future podcast.